It's always great with the man who, along with Michael Holley, brings you Brother from Another every single day at 3 Eastern Time after we are done with this space on NBC Sports on Peacock. Michael Smith back on the show. How are you, Michael?
Every single day when we don't take vacation, although I'm not going to Hawaii. So,
well, I'm going with my poker buddies.
Yeah, that makes a difference.
I might lose my shirt there. So it's all good. It'll be fun.
Wait, you going without the family?
That's correct. Susie's sitting in. My wife. She is sitting in this chair. She and Marshall Falk are doing all 3 hours of the Rich Eisen Show tomorrow. Charles Barkley calling in. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Dog, that's dope. So you can't get Wally pipped because the income will still be coming in if she takes the gig. So you're good there.
That's true. It's Wally. Hey, look,
the guy pointing to his temple. That's good thinking right there, dog. That's really good thinking.
You know, it's called Next Level. Michael Smith, Next Level.
But that's dope that you get to go. See, I got to work on that because I wonder. I need you to take me aside this conversation.
Yes.
Because was that the incentive? Like, babe, if you let me go with the fellas, you could hold down the show and grow your brand. Because as we both know, Rich, when you go on vacation with the family, that's a trip. That's not a vacation.
That's correct.
You're taking a vacation, so I need some pointers as a fellow father and husband on how to get this. I've never been on a vacation before by myself.
Nope. Well, let's talk offline on that. I'm more than happy to do that. But just not over the next couple days. I'm out of office.
And what island are you going to? Our islands.
I'm going to the Big Island, sir. The Big Island.
Okay. Going to Oahu? All right. Yeah, I've been there.
So it'll
Good
be
for
fun.
you. That's not what you call to talk to me about, though. What's up, man? How you doing? How was Super Bowl? I missed you out there. I did not run into you like I hoped I would.
It's great. It's all right. I just looked at your Instagram account and saw that you scrubbed all photos of me off it. So all Rich Eisen photos off of Michael Smith's Instagram page. What do you make of that story, Kyler Murray? What do you think's going on, Michael?
Yeah, it seems like there's a difference in opinion. Usually the default, the obvious and the easy explanation is the right one in these instances. There's a different disagreement on money. He's coming up on extension time, and he did not. They say you're only as funky as your last cut, and he stunk against the Rams, as we know. And so I'm assuming, and I think it's a safe assumption, that there is a difference in value, how the Cardinals see him and how he sees himself. But then when all the dirty laundry starts getting aired, see, that's how I wonder, like, how do you come back from that? Like, does a contract just make up for that? Like, if there's enough unhappiness on Kyler Murray's part to scrub his social media accounts of all things Cardinals, if there's enough unhappiness on the Cardinals' part to put out that he isn't, the best thing since sliced bread himself, like, how do you come back and move on for the next 10 years? It just kind of feels like this is the beginning of the end, and it's a matter of when, not if, this relationship ends one way or the other.
Well, I was just saying this, is that if you think someone is immature and that person has already scrubbed his Instagram account, which one would say does lack a sense of maturity, right?
Yeah, that's very teenager-ish.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so if you're dealing with somebody like that, how do you think he's going to handle the whisper of he's immature to Chris Mortensen? How do you think that one's going to land? So I don't know how you do come back from that. Yes, a contract will, no question, make it better, and he can still win championships for that team, but he will be on a mole hunt forever in that building. That is for sure.
And from the Cardinals' perspective, again, I like Kyler Murray. I think he's an exciting player. He, seems like a good kid. I don't know him personally, and I certainly don't know the inner workings of the Cardinals as an organization and where that would have come from or who would have been. If somebody is inclined to commit to him, why they would have put that out there to Mort. But you know the old saying, money doesn't change you. It just makes you more of who you already are. So if they have reservations about who he is from a character and leadership standpoint, how do you comfortably invest the amount of money that he's going to be looking for? It feels like it's on its way to being, a Baker Mayfield Cleveland thing where it's like, hey, we got to see more before we decide to commit. And the more you don't, going back to relationships, we've all been there. It's like, hey, what are we? What are we doing here? Are we going to, take the next step? And you're like, nah, I just want to chill. I just want to kick it. I'm not ready yet. Well, if the Cardinals aren't ready to commit fully to Kyler Murray, when will they ever be? And by that time, will the relationship be too far gone where he's like, nah, I remember those whispers to Mort back in the day. Don't think I forgot.
It could be. And then, but you can't blame the Cardinals for saying to him, we don't want to pay you now because our plan was to pay you next year. And if we pay you now, we have an issue keeping this guy, that guy, that guy, that guy. We've got to keep all of this stuff. Our plan is to pay you. Don't worry. Be happy, right? and right. And then he doesn't like that. It's kind of like this is the business that he's chosen.
Yeah.
And I can understand he would say, well, what about Josh Allen? Look at the money that he made. What about the fact that Wentz and Goff got paid? And so that's the conundrum because
if you're the Cardinals, you're like, what they eat don't make us crap, you know? I guess it is what it is. If you're Kyler Murray, and I would never begrudge a player from wanting to get his bread. If you're Kyler Murray, you feel like you've done enough, you've accomplished enough. You were the number one overall pick. Let's not forget, and I mean, it looks better and better in hindsight, given that we haven't heard much of anything from Josh Rosen. They went and took him number one overall when they'd already taken a quarterback top 10. That's how much they were in love with him on the front end. They've steadily improved, even though they've collapsed in the second half of regular seasons. Nonetheless, they've steadily improved the last couple of years, made the playoffs. So if you're him, you're like, yo, what are we waiting on? But if I side with the Cardinals here because he was awful in the playoffs in that loss to the Rams. He was awful. So if I'm the Cardinals, I would like to see more before believing that what you're asking for or what you're looking for or what the market says you should be or you're entitled to think you should be paid, I need to see more before I cut that check. So that's why you have this face-off, and that's why he's scrubbing his Instagram, and now all the dirty laundry is being aired. I just don't know how you put this proverbial toothpaste back in the tube.
I guess with 9 figures. That maybe is the way to do it. Michael Smith, a brother from another, right here on the Rich Eisen Show on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line. What's your take on the Simmons for Harden trade? I know there are others are involved, but those are the headliners. So what's your take on that?
Well, basketball-wise, I think the Sixers, the conventional wisdom is that if you get the best player, you win the trade. They got the best player, even if you're inclined to believe that James Harden is not the player that he once was. Maybe the last time he and Daryl Morey were together, he's not the same player. But he's still the best player in this trade. However, I do think that Simmons, when he plays, will be the better fit. Now, the trip part about this whole thing is usually when teams blow it up, it's either because guys are past their prime or it's because, there's money involved. There's some, typical reason why an experiment didn't work. This one didn't work for reasons that had nothing to do with basketball. They never played together, the Nets I'm talking about. And when they did play together, they were wonderful. This was a personality conflict and James Harden just getting restless. So that's the most fascinating aspect of it. This is unlike any kind of star swap we've seen. And the same thing goes for Philadelphia. They were just sick of Ben Simmons' act. Now, having said that, going back to basketball, I think Simmons is the better fit with the Nets and what they already have and what they need than Harden is with the Sixers, even though they weren't getting anything from Simmons to begin with. So while the Sixers got the better player, I would be inclined to think, again, once he plays, and assuming he's okay, that the Nets got the better of the trade. But the broader aspect of it is, on Harden's side, legacy, and I don't need to get into that, I'm just happy to see and hear from Ben Simmons. And not that he needs my approval, but I, like many others, reduced his discontent to the comments that were made after the Hawks series and other motivations such as ego and wanting to have his own team and not wanting to get along with Embiid and this, that, and the other. If he has some personal issues that preceded his playoff meltdown and that further complicated it, I just hope he's getting to a place where he can be happy and be the player that he's gifted enough to be. So I'm happy for him. I'm happy he's got a fresh start. And even though he's in the New York market, I would think there's less pressure on him, at least to begin with. We'll see how teams are able to exploit his lack of shooting in the playoffs.
What do you make of the concept of his mental health being the reason why he couldn't play for Philadelphia, and now he's with Brooklyn, and he seems to be struggling less with that, Michael?
You're talking about in terms of skepticism as to whether or not it really just came down to he didn't want to be in Philly and it's not really mental health, and, is he using mental health as a cover? You mean that?
let me just put a fine point on it that, that is the conversation being had in Philadelphia and writ large.
I understand
that this could be possible, and it is very touchy subject. It couldn't be not. It's one of the touchiest subjects. It's one that we, take very seriously.
Sure.
And so, what do you think?
I think you should be consistent, and I know that's what I want to be. It would be a disservice, and it would be unfair, and that was the skepticism to begin with, that, this is a guy really throwing a tantrum and using something very serious as a shield from further criticism when he's just not, tough enough to handle what thousands of players have handled before him and will handle after him, which is criticism for his own shortcomings. But I'll say this from personal experience. You can't heal where you got sick. And whatever he was dealing with off the court, I can't do anything other than take his word that there was something else going on. I don't think it's for me or us, for that matter, to dismiss his claims that he had some stuff going on in his life independent of the playoffs and independent of his relationship with the Sixers, and those things only exacerbated or compounded whatever was going on. So, yes, is it convenient that he's on the road to playing again now that he's gotten what he's wanted? It's no different than our children. They throw a tantrum and you give them what they want and they act as sweet as pie. It's like, well, wait a second. You know what I mean? Like, that's not the way you go about doing things. But if he says that there were issues that he doesn't want to get into, I think if we're going to be consistent when it comes to evolving and maturing ourselves as a society, as an industry, as individuals, when it comes to discussing the broad tent that is mental health, then let's be consistent. Let's not because we already have a preconceived notion or we already have an opinion about what we think it is or what we think it should be. Let's not let that cloud our judgment, or let's not even judge at all, I think. It's not a hot take, but I think it's the right way to go about it. If somebody says, I had issues that I don't really want to get into that had nothing to do with the trade, I'm going to believe him. The same way I'm going to believe James Harden at Philadelphia was his first choice, even though he probably says that to all the teams at this point. So, I think the best way to do it is the way we've always been doing it, which is let's be better than we've been traditionally and historically when it comes to dismissing out of hand somebody struggling with personal issues. I mean, they have lives outside of basketball. We see the basketball. We see him turning down shots. We see him turning down dunks. We see him demanding a trade and sitting out a season and losing a bunch of money. I'll tell you what, I respect the fact that my guy was so committed to not playing for that organization again that he forfeited a big chunk of change. So I would think something must have really been wrong for him to give up the millions of dollars that he did.
Michael Smith here on the Rich Eisen Show. Well, you mentioned how Ben Simmons turns down shots. He's not the only guy on the Nets who does. So what do you think?
Shot.
Thank you. What do you think this means for the Nets and Sixers in the short term and long run? What do you got for me?
Well, they got him under contract. So if New York, and you're more familiar with that market and the politics of that market than I am, if New York ends up easing its vaccine mandate and Kyrie Irving is able to play full time, well, I got another one for you. I got another joke for you. I don't know why everybody was tripping about Kyrie Irving only playing half the games when James Harden only played half the court.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, he did his own rim shot there in his house. I like it.
Anyway, that was so corny, but that's on brand for me. No, if they get all of their guys back plus Seth Curry, like I said, I think Simmons is the better fit. He's still an elite defender, an incredible passer, amazing in transition. And if he's right mentally, I think, especially in the half court, and this has been said by a lot, if he could just accept his role, by a lot of people, if he could accept his role and use that passing ability to make that offense flow more in line with what Kevin Durant and Steve Nash wanted. I think I read where James Harden philosophically wanted a more ISO-heavy attack, whereas, Nash and Durant want to play more like the Warriors. Well, here's your Draymond Green. Not that he's as good as Draymond Green.
No, I know what you're saying. No, it's just interesting, in terms of strategy. So what about the Sixers? That is Harden not have enough time to get in, and that maybe next year's a year for it, or I'm just hoping the basketball gods see fit to make this a 3-6 first round matchup, 4-5 or whatever. I mean, that would just be dynamite.
I hope they both play. Was it March 10th? I hope they can both play by then.
I mean, March 10th. I don't know. Do you send Simmons into Philadelphia? Is that what you do? I mean,
well, if you want the 3-6, I mean, you got to get it out of the way at some point.
No, that's going to happen. I mean, the playoffs, he can't sit out or have management or whatever,
I think you rip that Band-Aid off. I mean, that's because wherever he goes, if he goes to Brooklyn, I mean, I know Brooklyn's fan base isn't what Philly's is, and he doesn't have the history in Brooklyn. But if he struggles in Brooklyn, you're going to hear boos there too.
Oh, of course.
Now, he's probably going to hear boos at every arena he plays at, because even though he was a Philadelphia 76er, that became a national story. And you'd be hard pressed to find an NBA fan that did not have an opinion about Ben Simmons, Sixer fan or not.
Right.
So. But in terms of what was your question about
the Sixers' long run this year?
So
I mean,
Harden,
what do you think?
With Harden, so he misses the deadline conveniently to opt in for next year. Harden is that guy, either that woman or man, whichever, that has a whole lot of relationships, like a serial monogamous. He's like, yo, why you have no trouble getting a boyfriend, but why have you run through so many? Or that person whose resume has a long list of employment. It's like, why you can't keep a job? You can get a job, but you can't keep a job. Harden has run through every superstar in the NBA at this point that he could realistically do it with. So unless and until it does work with Joel Embiid, I'm skeptical that it will, because for some reason it has not worked with Harden and another superstar. Embiid is also not just a roll to the rim. He's not going to take a back seat. He's not a take a back seat kind of big man. He is if they run the pick and roll game, he's probably more likely to pop than he is to roll. So it'll be interesting to see how they gel in a short period of time. And in that short period of time, let's say they don't win it. Let's say they don't win a championship this year. Is Harden going to have a wandering eye again? Does he just want to be a free agent and pick his team independent of trade machinations and ownership input and general manager? Does he want to be wooed? What's important to him? Because what I still believe, if had he given it time, and I get the Kyrie thing frustrated him. He's not alone in that. But you mean to tell me a healthy Kevin Durant and a healthy James Harden could not have contended in the Eastern Conference without Kyrie Irving? I still believe they could have.
Well, I said yesterday, if he doesn't win with Philadelphia, or it doesn't work with Philadelphia for Harden, then he becomes Westbrook. That's what he becomes.
Even if it does work, does he get the usual championship credit?
Oh, I think he would. I think he would.
Do the way he got here?
Oh, I think he would. I think he would be lionized in Philadelphia forevermore if he brings the Sixers a championship, or he's part of a Sixers championship, even if he's just there as a complimentary piece to an out of his gourd Embiid. I think he would. I do.
Listen, I mean, a ring is a ring. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
And if he's hungry and his Marissa Tomei biological clock is doing this, is ticking.
Stopping, yeah.
Then okay, I get that. And however he gets it, he gets it. And there's no shame in being a number two, a clear-cut number two, arguably the best big man, if not one of the best players in the NBA. There's no shame in that, whatsoever. There's no shame in being, no disrespect to the Big O, but there's no shame in being Oscar to Embiid's Kareem, if you will. Oscar's also one of the greatest players of all time, right? But it was Lou Alcindor. So regardless, it's a ring. Will he be lionized in Philly? Yeah, because they're championship stars. But James Harden, the MVP, being so nomadic and such a hired gun,
right,
and the way he forced his way out of Philadelphia, the way he's forced his way out of the Nets, I question as to whether or not he'll be viewed in the same vein as most players superstar players who win championships. Now, the other side of that coin is what he talked about yesterday. Maybe this is just somebody, a player taking the player empowerment era that we're in to a whole nother level, and just it hasn't found the right spot. But if you got to go through so much to find the right spot, and so many people to find the right spot, even if you count the iterations of the Rockets when he was there, both in terms of supporting cast, head coach, and now it didn't work, or he didn't want to see it through, with the Nets a year later. Now he is with the Sixers. I feel like it's already a referendum on him, and I don't know if that championship makes me look at him any differently. Brilliant individual player, brilliant scorer, brilliant passer, exceptional talent, one of the best scorers we've ever seen. But I think he's shown that he's that proverbial, you can't win with him as your best player. Thankfully, they got Joel Embiid for that, so we'll see how they fit together.
We'll see you at the top of the next hour. You and Michael Holley, sir. Thanks for the call, Michael Smith, as always.
It's been too long, dog. Don't make me, he had me worried that you would trade me for somebody else.
Not at all.
Like, damn, I ain't talked to Rich in a while.
You're on my Instagram. You're on my Instagram. I have not scrubbed it.
I appreciate it, man.
You're welcome. Take care.
Y'all be good.
That's
Enjoy Hawaii. Aloha.
Thank you. Aloha. That's Michael Smith, everybody.
that, Mike.
Brother from another, top of next hour, 3 Eastern, with he and Michael Holley right here on NBC Sports on Peacock. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.